What's going on? My name is Aaron Godwin. I am the Engineer of Wealth. Just want to make sure that microphone is on. And today we are starting the Engineered Wealth Challenge. So today is day one of that Engineered Wealth Challenge. We are going to be diving into why. Why do we save? Why do we do anything? Why are we putting money aside? The simplest answer for that is because the future is the rest of my life, right? So the rest of my life is going to be lived in the future, right? We only have today, and so the rest of my life will be lived in the future. So we're going to save for that future. Now, what we save and what we save for depends, right? Some people are saving for a car, some people are saving for vacation, some people are saving for a wedding, engagement rings, a house, college for their kids, rental properties, businesses, retirement. People save for all kinds of things. But if we were to lump all of those together with one word, what would it be? That word is spend, right? We save to spend. So we save to spend. Now that's a very easy concept for us to first just grasp onto, is that we're going to save to spend, because we are putting our money aside so that we can spend it. We can spend it on a car, we can spend it on an engagement ring, we can spend it on a wedding, we can spend it on college for our kids, we can spend it during retirement, right? So we save to spend. I want to talk about that real quick, in that we save to spend. And what does that look like? So first off, if you look at our lives, here's our life. This is basically our timeline, and this is going to be our net worth that we start off with, right? You get your first job, you go to college, and you get your first job after that. You start off at zero. Most people that you go to and most people that you talk to, as soon as they get that first job, what do? They go buy that new car. They go buy that new car, go buy that new house, they go buy that next thing, right? And what do they do after that? They make payments in order to get back to zero. As soon as that car is paid off, or close to 100,000, if you're like some people out there, you go and you buy another one, right? And so you start over. So this is a cycle of spending money and then getting back to zero. The opposite of this is the saver. So the saver will go and they save money, and then at the end they spend it all back down to zero. Right? So they save up to get that next car, and then they spend it all to get back to zero. Right? There are some significant differences between these two, but there are some similarities. The first similarity is they both end up at zero. They both end up at zero, and they are not able to capture what I like to call as opportunity cost, right? So they're not capturing opportunity cost, especially the saver up here. He or she is not able to recapture opportunity cost. Now, everything has a cost. Oh no. Just lost my pins. All right, everything has a cost. Down here, we have interest cost. So we either have opportunity cost or we have interest cost. And no matter what we're doing, we're going to be paying one or the other. Our entire life is going to be financed. It is on a conceptual level that our entire life will be financed. It's going to be either financed by interest cost, or it's going to be financed by opportunity costs that are missed. Okay? So the easiest example that we can look at is if you were to be that saver, and you're that saver, and you now have $30,000 in the bank. You come up to me and you say, Aaron, I have been such a good saver. Sorry, it looks like the top of that screen's cut off. So I have been such a good saver. I now have $30,000 in the bank, and I want to go buy that new car. I have $30,000 in the bank, and give me that pen. Right. I have $30,000 in the bank, and I am ready to go buy that new car that I've been saving for. Awesome. Well, as your financial consultant, as your financial coach, have you done the math on it? Have you done the math on what you would miss out on if you were to pull that money out of the bank? Now, a lot of times we'll just dive into the numbers and we'll compare. We don't know what that answer is until we do the math, right? So let's look at some additional givens, right? So the first given is the bank has $30,000 in it, and that $30,000 is earning interest right now. So you're earning just simple interest of 4% every single year. On the opposite hand, if we were to go take this car loan out, that also has an interest. It has an interest charge of 6%. So we're either going to get paid 4% or we're going to get charged 6%. Which one should we do? A lot of people jump to this answer. Hold on. Let's do the math. What should we do? Should we pull all of our money out of the bank, or should we go get that car loan? So first, let's look at pulling that money out of the bank. Okay, it looks like both of those are able to be seen. So right now we have $30,000 in the bank. And an extra zero there. Let's get rid of one of the zeros. And we are going to be going ahead and pulling all of that out basically in order to pay off that car. So what would the opportunity cost be of that car if we were to pull all that money out? Okay, let's look at a 5-year loan. So we see the opportunity cost of that is $6,500. So we're just going to abbreviate that OC 6,500. How did I get 6,500? So we already had 30,000 and it was earning simple interest of 4% every single year, and that future value is 36,500. So we've earned $6,500 through that time. Okay. So that's how we came up with that. Now, on the opposite end, we have to calculate what that interest is. We have to calculate how much we're going to pay in interest. We have to calculate what that interest cost is. So we're going to start off taking a loan. And at the end of that loan, we're going to get back to zero. And that annual interest rate is 6%. And then that last number is going to be 5. Now, whenever I hit this number, this is just going to be what our payments are. All right, so hit that number, and we see that that payment is $6,718.77. So let's go ahead and write that down. So payment 6,718.77. Now, this would, of course, you're going to do it on annual payments, but just for ease of this explanation for you guys, we're going to do just annual payments. Now, that last thing that we need to do is calculate what this will cost us. 6,718, because we're not going to be out that first $30,000 right at the beginning. And 6,718 times 5 years equals, all right, let's bring that calculator back. All right. Equals $33,593.85. So what did that cost you in interest? So the interest if we compare the two, right, we still have the $30,000 car in our garage. So the interest is going to be $33,593 minus the $30,000. So that interest is $3,593.85. Right? So at first, we automatically made that assumption. Hey, if I'm earning 4% and if I have a car loan at 6%, I should just go do that car loan. But if we were to take a step back, we see that that money has an opportunity cost. And what's even better about leaving that money in the bank earning 4% is that that continues to grow. Whereas, if we had taken that all out of the bank and just started saving again, we would be starting at zero. Right? So we would be starting at zero to get back to that number. Okay? So we would be starting at zero to get back to that number in order to go forward. Right? So that is the big difference between opportunity cost and interest cost. Okay? Now, we also want to dig into what are we doing, right? So we're saving, spending, but why? Right? Why? So we can have these things. Next, we want to talk about where we put our money. Okay, so whenever we talk about where we put our money is at times more important than how much that money is earning. Because if we are looking at interest charges, if we're looking at opportunity cost, if we're looking at taxes, if we're looking at fees, if we're looking at liquidity and availability of our money, then we can run into some very significant problems through that. So we need to make some assumptions, and we need to look at what we're doing with our money so that we can see what our future is. Okay? Many people have heard of the 4% rule. I'm going to assume most of you guys have heard of the 4% rule. And that 4% rule is simply that if you have a sum of money in the bank, you can withdraw 4% from that and never run out of money. That 4% rule is based off of pulling 4% out and not running out of money over 30 years. And then the definition of success in that possibility is having $1 left over at the end. So that was a study done by some very famous economists back in the 80s, and there's been some changes to it just because of the things that have happened in the stock market over the last couple of years. So I want to just talk about that 4% rule first off. And this is the plan that most people have been sold by their financial advisors, by their 401ks, by their businesses, by their jobs, right? You put all this money away, and then at some time at the end, you can live off of it. So in order to figure out, hey, if we're going to reverse engineer this, how much money do I need, right? If I'm going to live off of, my current salary, how much money am I going to need? And that's a great question. If we look at those givens, right, we always start off with our givens. If you are currently making $100,000 per year, right, you're currently making $100,000 per year. How much do you need in the bank in order to live off of that 4% rule? Right? So in order to live off that 4% rule, we need a calculator. Let's get another calculator. And we can simply do the math. All right, so do the math. So if you're currently making $100,000, and if you sometime in the future you are going to be living off of 4%, just divide by 4%. I don't know why that's not working. Let's try that again. All right, you're making $100,000 divided by 0.04, right? In order to have that nest egg available to you to live off your current means, you need to have $2.5 million in the bank. So if we need to have $2.5 million in the bank, we know what our goal is, right? So we just need to reverse engineer that to get there. So we have to make it to 2.5 million. Well, if we were looking at kind of that average saver and they were going to be saving, say 35-year-old, they have nothing saved up currently, but they were told that they need to save 15% per year. So they are going to put $15,000 per year into that for the next 30 years, from 35 to 65. So they're going to put 15,000. What is that interest rate? If you'll go down to one of the units below, I connected the 2018 Dalbar study. The 2018 Dalbar study proves that the annual interest rate that people are earning is about 5.29%, right? So about 5.29. Most people think they're earning much more than that, but they are not, okay? So if we were to put 15% away every single year, we would be about halfway there. So we would have about $1.1 million, right? So that's not going to get us there. We're not going to be able to retire off of 1.1 million whenever we need 2.5 million. So let's see what we need to be saving. Okay. All right, if we're looking at that payment calculator again, let's move this one out of the way. Let's take a look at this one. If our present value is 0, if our future value needs to be 2.5 million, and we are earning an annual interest rate of 5.29, and we are going to be working 30 years, how much do we need to be saving? All right. So we need to be saving $34,000. I'm going to round that up $5. So we need to be saving $34,000 per year. All right, if we're making $100,000, you need to be saving 34% of your income every single year just to retire at your current living expenses. Right? Just to retire at your current living expenses. Well, Aaron, that sucks. That sucks. I can't imagine changing my lifestyle so that I'm putting a third of my money away for retirement. Okay? Well, what rate of return do we have to chase then? So if we were looking to chase some type of rate of return in order to do this, let's say that we wanted, where we're at right now, we know that we want to retire in the next 10 years. Excuse me. We need to get to 2.5 million, and we're putting currently 15,000 per year into it, and we want to retire in the next 10 years. Okay. And if we want to retire in the next 10 years, we have to have almost a 50% rate of return. Right? 15,000 a year, 2.5 million. Over 10 years, we have to have almost a 50% rate of return. But Aaron, I don't have 10 years. I have more time in order to do that. Okay. Well, let's look at what that would be over 30 years. Right? Over 30 years, you would have to average 9.58. You would have to average, after all of your fees are paid, all of your taxes are paid, all of the market volatility has to be completely out of the market, you would have to average 9.58% in order to do that. All right, so saving 15,000, we have to average, oh, I didn't keep that calculator on top. We have to average 9.58. 58%. All right, so I talked to some people, and I came from some of that Dave Ramsey school of thought in the past too, that, hey, that seems doable. I feel like I can average 9.58%. I feel like I can average 10%. Well, let's look and see what the history of the stock market shows for that. So if we look at the history of the stock market, all right, we're going to take that off the top, take that off the top, take that off the top. Okay. If we look at the history of the stock market and we look at the entire history, right, 7.64, but let's look more at the modern history of the stock market. From 1999 through 2019. From 1999 through 2019, which is where most of us are, for the last 30 years, we have seen, for the last 20 years, we have seen even S&P 500 with dividends 8.26. So S&P 500 with dividends 8.26. But is that a true number? Is that a true number? What happens is, as soon as we put a cash value to any of these numbers, that 8.26 changes to an actual rate of return of 6.7. So we need to get 9.26, but really we're getting 6.7. What in the world is going on there? Great question. All right, so the average of that is 6.7. What is happening? Why is there such a big difference between average rate of return versus actual rate of return? So let's talk about that. Why is there a difference between average rate of return and actual rate of return? Let's say that we start working together. You have $100,000 in the bank. You come to me, you say, $10,000 in the bank. $10,000 in the bank, you say, Aaron, I am aggressive. I want an aggressive portfolio. I have to make a 50% return every single year in order for me to be able to retire in 10 years. Okay, so let's take a look at that. That first year, everything goes great. We actually have 100% return during that first year. How much money do we have? 100% of $10,000 is another $10,000. So now we have $20,000. Aaron, that's amazing. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep doing this. Hey, I understand that we have to make it over this next 10 years, but we have to understand that there is some market volatility out there. Aaron, I don't care. I know that we can eventually make it up. Okay. So we start here at $20,000, right? The $10,000 we start off with plus another $10,000, and the market drops by 50%. How much money do we have? What is 50% of 20,000? So we're back to where we started. Now, you're probably pretty upset. You're going to want to talk to that advisor. You're going to want to go screaming into their office. You're going to want to get rid of that advisor. You walk in there, and that advisor says, congratulations. And you're like, you were going in mad, but now you're a little bit confused. Congratulations for what? you have an average rate of return of 25%. Now, most of the people in here are engineers. I like to work primarily with engineers. How many engineers think that if you start with 10,000 and you end with 10,000 that you have a 25% rate of return? It's not true, right? So we can look at that actual. So we know the actual is 0%. And of course, if you're paying any fees, it's probably going to be negative. But this average, the way that they calculate averages, and you can go look at 3-year market history, 5-year market history, 10-year market history, and this is the way that they calculate that average. And this is one of the things that made me leave engineering to get into financial services, because I think this is one of the most dishonest things that are out there. If you have 100% and then you subtract 50% and then you divide by 2 years, what do you have? Right? 100% minus 50% is 50%. Divided by 2, you get 25% rates of returns. So what happens? You are still mad, right? You figure out, hey, this guy's trying to mess me over. Like, he's trying to pull out some mathematical lies. I'm smart. I'm an engineer. I know better. What is he? Next thing he's going to tell you? He's going to tell you that the market's down. Hey, the market's down. Now is a great time to buy more. Where was he last year? Where was he last year whenever you had $20,000 in the bank and the market was at all-time record highs telling you to sell? He wasn't there, right? This whole marketing ploy by the financial services industry of buy low and sell high is false. They will always tell you that it's a good time to buy. They will always tell you that it's a good time to buy. They will never call you and say, hey, now is a good time to sell. Right? They will never call you and tell you that now is a good time to sell. Okay? So I want you guys to just lean into that, lean into those averages, lean into, hey, there is some falsities within the financial services industry. I know that, Aaron, you're in financial services. Why would you move to engineering to financial services if you don't like it? Because I can do math, right? Because I can do math and I can understand that what they're putting out there is not true. And I have to tell you what my why is, right? We started off today with what is the why for saving. Let me tell you what my why is for moving to financial services. My why is that I believe that the average American tax-paying citizen has been tricked. I believe that the 401k is one of the largest tricks that big corporations, Wall Street, and the government have ever played on the average tax-paying citizen. If we look at our grandparents, our great-grandparents, we look at their retirement. They had Social Security, they had a pension, and then they had savings. And most of the time that savings was probably the shortest leg of that 3 in order for them to go into retirement. And because between their pension and the Social Security, most of their expenses were taken care of. Now we look at 1978. 1978, the 3 amigos get together, government, the banks, the corporations, Wall Street, they get together and they're trying to reduce the liabilities on their books. They're trying to reduce the liabilities, and one of the main contentions is the pensions, right? So the pensions are this huge liability because they are a defined benefit, right? Defined benefit. So you have a pension that is a defined benefit for your future. And they're trying to figure out what they can do. And instead of having a defined benefit, they change it so that it's a defined contribution. So this is now a defined contribution. And instead of us having to pay you out in the future at some undisclosed, at some known rate that we don't know how we're going to get there, we can pay you now at this defined contribution. So you start paying now in this defined contribution into the 401k, and from the 401k, it gets put into the market. And so the big corporations win because they now have defined contributions. Wall Street wins because now they just tapped into the American people, and they have more people investing in the stock market. And this is where we see that the market continues to grow because there's just more and more people coming into the market, putting more and more money into the market, as opposed to these pensions and these other things that we had in the past. And government wins, right? How does government win? Whenever all this was set up, they were looking at ways to generate tax revenue in the future, right? So they're all looking at ways to generate revenue, tax revenue in the future. If you had a choice of collecting, we'll say that person that's making $100,000, if you had a choice of taking that $10,000 in taxes that they would pay that year, or if you could extend that out 30 years, and at the end of that 30 years, they have $1 million. And we're going to assume the same tax rate, same 10%. So instead of having $10,000, you now have $100,000 that you collect in taxes. Which would you do? Okay. And so that's how the government gets tied into this, that they're able to participate basically in the market with no risk and no fees. You are taking all the risk. You are paying all the fees for this, for the 401ks and for the markets for these. Okay. I know we went over a lot right now, so I want to go ahead and wrap up today and just showing that there are some discrepancies between what is happening and what people actually want to happen. So I want to just bring that to light. I didn't finish my believe statement. I believe the average American tax-paying citizen has been tricked by the government, big corporations, and Wall Street to give up control of their money, for the next 30 years for a hypothetical rate of return, right? There's no guarantees in the stock market. Tomorrow, the market could drop by 50%, and I don't think very many people would be surprised, right? I cannot predict what the market's doing right now. Nobody can predict what the market's doing right now. But I believe that if the next major turn of the market was to be down, not very many people would be surprised. It would not catch many people by surprise. But what are they doing with their money? Right? So I believe that the average American tax-paying citizen has been tricked into giving up control of their money for a hypothetical rate of return. I work with smart, action-taking decision makers to take back control of their money so that they can choose what they want to do with their money. They can choose to start businesses. They can choose to go back to school. They can choose to take some time off of work to take care of a sick child, spouse, or parent. They get to choose if they want to retire early, right? My main belief is giving back control so that people can have the choice of what they want to do instead of being just defaulted into this government, big corporation, and Wall Street plan. Thank you guys so much for just day one of the Engineered Wealth Solution. I know that we dove into a lot of stuff. I went a little bit over. We dove into a little bit deeper math than I had planned. So thank you for staying with me. Use those mathematical equations. Calculate what you are going to have in order to retire in the next 10 years. What percentage are you going to have to retire in the next 10 years? Or what percentage are you going to have in order to retire in 30 years? And what is that nest egg goal that they've set for you, right? What is that nest egg goal that they've set for you? That is going to be your homework for tonight. During the Q&A, I'm actually going to jump into Excel so that you guys can do some of these things in Excel if we have time. And I thank you guys. I look forward to working with you, whatever you choose to do. My name is Aaron Godwin. This is the Engineered Wealth Challenge, and we will see you tomorrow.